Shalom, everybody, and today we're studying Parashat BeHa'alotekha. You can find it in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, chapter 8, verse 1. BeHa'alotekha, the root of the word BeHa'alotekha is Allah, Ayin Lamed Hey, to ascend, to rise. And it says, verse 2, chapter 8, verse 2, דבר אל אהרון ואמרת אליו, speak to Aaron and you tell him, בהעלותך את הנורות, as you raise, ascend. It's like this word is simply cannot be translated directly into English because the use of ascending candles in Hebrew, בהעלותך את הנורות, means to light candles. In English, you don't use that word for lighting fire or lighting candles. But in Hebrew, la'alot is like going up, is the same, to raise up is the same word for lighting candles. So what's the story over here? Ba'alotcha et hanerot. So here, there's a direction. When you raise the candles, אל מול פני המנורה יאירו שבעת הנרות. The 7 candles will shine in front of the menorah, the candelabra. ויעש כן אהרון. And then verse 3, and Aaron did so. אל מול פני המנורה העלה נרותיה. In front of the candelabra, he raised the candles. I'm just translating word by word from Hebrew to English, and I hope you realize it doesn't make sense. Why? כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה, as God ordered Moses. What is so special to say that Aaron did so? God tells you, light the candles, and he lit the candles. What's the big news about it? So here we learn one of the major lessons in all over the Torah. Because there's a question. First of all, what does it mean, raising the candles? You lighting a candles. You have a word for it in Hebrew, lehadlik, to turn the light on. Lehadlik, to light a candle, to light a match. Okay, you use the word lehadlik. Why using the word leha'alot? BeHa'alot, that's the grammatical structure, which means BeHa'alotcha means it's one word, but it means as you raise up the candles. You don't raise up candles, you turn them on, you light them on. So the answer that the Zohar is giving us, and this is a very critical issue to understand the story of this parasha, the story of our life, the story of humanity. We can understand a lot of issues in the story of humanity and the problems we're facing right now and for eons, but especially right now, by understanding these few sentences. Why are they written in such a weird way? So the question were two. One question was, basically 3 questions. Okay, one question, why using the verb Allah to light candles? It doesn't belong it. You should use the verb dalak or ladlik in order to light candles. The second was, why saying that the 7 candles were lit, were shining in front of the candelabra? It should be said that the 7 candles were shining all on the candelabra, on the menorah, in the menorah. But why in front? You cannot have 7 candles burning or shining in front of the candelabra. Why? Because they are part of the candelabra. And then the third question, verse 3, why does it have to say that Aaron did the way God ordered him? Okay, So the answer, of course, is in the Zohar. And we will start on it's a question that appears a few times in the Torah, but it's essential to understand what the Torah is about. Because unfortunately, along the millennia of Torah study, along the millennia of people trying to understand what the Torah is about, what Judaism is about, what happened on Mount Sinai, what was the purpose of what was the purpose of the Exodus, what was the purpose of giving of the Torah, what was the purpose of the creation of the universe in the first place. So I hope we can give it an answer that will give some angle to human destiny, to human basically calling every human being. So we read in the Zohar of Parashat BeHa'alotekha, verse 8 in the Sulam commentary, and I'm reading first from the original text, the Aramaic. And the story is like this. It's in the middle of the article, but I want to focus on our three questions. Remember the question, the first question, why raising the candles, ascending the candles, not lighting them? Two, why seven candles are shining in front of the menorah, the candelabra, the seven candles candelabra that was in the tabernacle, later on in the temple. And the third, why do we have to say that Aaron did it? So he did it. So why does it have to mention? So, verse 8. As I said, it's in the middle of the article, but we want to focus on answering these three questions. הוקמו בגין דיור רשימה קדישא ומחבלה כדיור נפיק, וכמה יהוד דמה דהבה רשימה לא פיתחה, חייס עלי עוד ישראל. עדה עוד הכתיב ופסח אדוני על הפתח. החייק להסתכלה. אי קודשה בריחו עתי וקטיל בערה דמצרים ולא שליח אחריו, רשימה דדה על פיתחה למה, והכל הגלי קמי, ותו מהו ולא ייתן המשחית ולא ישחית מבעלי. Translation. When it says the Zohar is taking us to a very known event, the 10th plague. And one of the most essential part of the 10th plague, that the most famous part of the 10th plague, is that the Israelites were ordered to slaughter the lamb and to take, of course, they did the lamb on open fire. They barbecued, they roasted the lamb completely, a complete lamb on an open fire. However, another thing that everybody knows is that they took the blood of the lamb and they put it on the doorpost and the two lintels, which means the two posts and lintel, which means in the three sides of the doorway. Okay? And then the result was that the angel of death passed over the houses of the Israelites and killed only the firstborn of the Egyptians. And that's why the name of the holiday is Passover, because the angel of death passed over the houses of the Israelites and killed only the firstborns of the Egyptians. So now the question, and the Zohar says, we already explained many aspects of that verse. However, what does it mean? Why did they have to mark the door in such a way? Why did they have to mark the doorpost? And the question is like this. Because it's a holy mark, okay? And the destroyer, the angel of death, when he came out and he saw that blood inscribed, marked on the doorpost, the doorway, he had mercy for the Israelites. And therefore, he didn't kill them. as it says, Ufasach Hashem al petach. And it says in Exodus, of course, and God passed over the doorway. We have to look at it again. We have to contemplate on that, think carefully. We say that God killed in Egypt and not the angel of death. And it's, as it says, Ani velo malach, ani velo shaliach. I am and not, I will do that, not an angel. I will do that, God says, not a messenger. So if God did that and not a messenger, so why do we need the mark on the doorway? Doesn't God know everything? So why do we need the mark on the doorway? He knows everything. Everything is so clear to him. You know, as a question, when I was a kid, I was praying to God, and I was saying to myself, if God is knowing everything and is everything, and he knows my thoughts, he knows what about everything, because he's above everything and he's within everything and he is around everything, so he should know what is that I need. Why do I need to tell him what I need? Doesn't he know in advance? Why do you have to pray for him? He knows exactly what I need. Why should I tell him? He knows even better than I do what I really need. So it looks like, why should I pray in the first place? This is a very important question. Why do we need to do anything if God knows everything? He knows ahead of me. Another question. So when it says he won't let the destroyer, so it means there is a messenger. Should be, he should not destroy if he sees the mark on the doorway. Why do we say that? Because the grammatical structure that Zohar is emphasizing, he doesn't say he won't destroy, he says he won't let the destroyer to destroy. But that's contradicting what we just said, that, you know, it's very famous. I am and not a messenger. I am not an angel. Verse 9. Ela vadai hachyu. I'm continuing to read the Zohar. דכתיב ואדוני יקע כל בכור, ואדוני הוא בית דינו. והוא בית דינה אחרי שתקח ובכל הבית לחזה ובדה, בגין השתזבה, כי הגב נדע על גבי מטבחה, בגין דלה השתכח מחבלה. So, we understand when it says, VeHashem, and God, and it doesn't say God did A, B, C, it says and God did it, the and shows there is an addition. The letter Vav, the Ve, which is the letter Vav, which in simple Hebrew means A and D, and in English. In Hebrew, it's a letter that is added. It's not a standing alone word like in English. And it's a letter Vav before the word, just coming at the beginning of the word, stuck to the word. You don't see two words. Okay? The moment that letter, which is called Vav HaChibur, the Vav of the connection, we connecting, means there is an additional thing. What addition? The letter Vav, we know from the Tetragrammaton, the Vav shows about the world above, the world of loving kindness and mercy. So the moment it says, and God, we understand it's not just God. It says it says everywhere, not just in the Zohar. It says Hashem uveidino. It's God and his court of judges. Why does it have, so what does it mean? It means to show there is a mixed force acting over here. For instance, as an example, it says also about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Exactly the same expression, VeHashem, and God, which means it was judgment to Sodom and Gomorrah but it was mercy for Lot and his two daughters. They were saved. So here we see there is a kind of a mixed power acting over here. It is mercy for some people, it is judgment for other people. Okay, another example in the splitting of the Red Sea. Again, it says Vehashem, and again it was judgment for the Egyptians and mercy for the Israelites in the same action. Okay, and so what do we learn from that? ובכל מקום צריכים להראות מעשה למטה, כדי לעורר כנגדו למעלה להינצל. And what are the words? Very important. Everywhere in this creation, I'm adding a little bit, in this creation, in this world we are part of, the rule is that in every place that you need that something will happen, and especially something will happen from God, you need to show an action. You need to generate an action below, which means in the physical dimension, in order to awaken something from above so you can be saved. So, ובשביל זה היו צריכים לתת את הדם, and therefore they needed to have the mark of the blood on the opening of the door. Same thing, you need in the temple, you need to bring the offerings, physical animals, and there were also like vegetable kingdom, like wheat and stuff like this, and barley. You have to bring physical offerings in order to awaken something from above, which means you have to listen to that very carefully. It's not like in the idol worshiping system, you bring offerings, sacrifice something of yourself from below, so the gods will be appeased above. We don't need to appease God. Why? He's never upset. He's endless love, kindness, sharing, and power. Can I change the infinite as a human being? No, I can't. Can I make any difference for the infinite? No, I can't. I'm not capable. So our sages are asking in the Talmud, so why does God care if we do all of that stuff? And the answer is, it doesn't change anything in him, but רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה ומצוות. Since the Creator wanted to purify, to get, the word is, it's a mix of, the word means to give the Israelites merit, but the word merit in Hebrew is replaceable with the word to purify. It's the same word. Lezakot, the shoresh means also lezakech, to purify. And that's the main issue that we're talking about today. Why do we need to do all of these actions that we were given on Mount Sinai? The answer is, the purpose is that we purify ourselves so we can get closer to him. We cannot change his opinion about us. Why? He loves us unconditionally. He is crazy about each one of us. He sees us beyond time and space, which means for him, we are already after. We are during and after because he's above time. Remember that. We already finished our tikkun. We are already the pure, beautiful, exalted vessels we were created to become. For God, it's already happened. To give you an example. A farmer worked really hard and he planted that plantation of the most tasty peaches, okay? So now the peaches bloomed after the winter. It's a beautiful bloom if you saw the peach blooming. And then the fruits started to grow on the trees. Now, how do they look like in the beginning? They're small, green. You try to taste them, they taste horrible. Okay? Is the farmer upset about the peaches that are not really pleasing? No. Why? Because he knows there is a process that till they get ripe, they need to grow and grow and grow. Meanwhile, they're very unpleasant and unedible. Otherwise, if they will be tasty and they will smell so good as they are when they are ripe, all the creatures of the wilderness around will try to eat them and devour them before they're ready to be picked. So the farmer is not upset when the peaches are tasting horrible and they are so hard like stones as they grow on the tree. He's just waiting, and he knows, because he knows his trees. He picked that uh, kind of peaches very, very clearly in order to get that yield that he's planning for. The taste, the time of uh, when it's all ripe, all of that was calculated by the farmer. So he's not upset. He sees that, and he's pleased as he sees the process of the peaches getting bigger and bigger. However, his cousin coming from the city, he's never been in a farm before, and he sees the peaches, and of course, he looks at them and he says, that doesn't look like a peach. It's hard. It tastes horrible. You cannot sell them. You're just wasting your money by taking care of such, property and all, you have to feed the trees. You have to make sure they get watered and they get protected. Because if you don't understand, you don't see the process. From the point of view of the creator, we are like those fruits that they have to go through the process till they are ripe. The farmer sees the process, he knows the process, he's accepting the idea that there is a process, and therefore he's just calculating what will happen when the whole plantation will get ripe. And hopefully, with today's economy, it has to be ripe around the same day. Why? Because you can't bring the machinery, the people, the workers, every day to pick the ones who just got ripe today. In today's economy, you need to have that in one day, that you bring all the machinery and the workers, and they pick the whole plantation, and now they ship them to be sold. And that's what the farmer is waiting for. So the same way we talk about God's vision, perception, his thoughts are not ours. It says his thinking is not like ours. So we cannot even, but it's the closest we can understand. The fact that we are not ripe, that we are not complete, that has nothing to do with God getting upset or disappointed with us. Therefore, we don't need to appease him. We just need to follow the process. That's what we need to do. And how would the process happen? And here comes the answer. When we understand the idea of what is a mitzvah. So if you're an American Jew, for instance, you say a mitzvah is a good deed. For my time, knowing people who were raised up in the Jewish American background, a mitzvah is a good deed. Or like most Jews who come from, with a Jewish traditional background. And a mitzvah is not a good deed. A good deed is ma'aseh tov. A mitzvah is something totally else. What is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is an action that a human being is doing in the physical world. However, he's not just doing a good deed, he's not just doing a religious uh, uh, rite or a ceremony or something like this. He is doing according to the Zohar, and that's what we're talking about. Let's say, as we said before, he's doing something below, which means he's doing an action in the physical, uh, mundane dimension. In this case, he's lighting the candles. Or the Israelites took the blood of the lamb and they physically put it on the three sides of the door to their homes. Okay. The answer, why do they do it? You do something in the physical world, but you mean to awaken something from the non-physical dimension, the spiritual, the other dimension, the dimension that is called in Hebrew Olam Haba, wrongly translated as the world to come. It's not the world to come because in Hebrew it says Olam Haba. Olam Haba means the world that is coming in present. The grammatical structure is the present continuous. It's coming always, which means God's bliss, God's light, all what God intends to each one of us, this is a given and that will never, ever can be changed. The question is, it's coming at us, Olam Haba. The question is, do we say, Baruch Haba, welcome? Do we welcome it? How do we welcome it? We have to create an action below in the physical mundane dimension. That action is the vessel to invite the spiritual, non-physical, metaphysical, we can say, force that is waiting for us to be revealed, discovered, and manifested. This is the main idea. So, and then the Zohar is saying the same way. So in order to prevent, on Passover, to prevent the death of the Israelites, because there was a power of death everywhere, they had to do a physical action in order to generate that force that is called protection. So they put what they put on the doorpost, on the doorway. Now, here, the Zohar continues, verse 10 in the Zohar Sulam. This is an action, זהו במעשה, which means the offerings in the temple, בזמן שלא צריך זה כנוהג בראש השנה, שהוא יום הדין, ובליל הראשון עומדים לקטרג על ישראל, שלא מופיע מספיק בקורבנות ובה צריכים דיבורים. Okay, so we'll take another example. The Zohar is saying, let's talk about Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year cycle of every human soul, there is a lot of man-made garbage, which means man-made metaphysical garbage, hatred, anger, greed, whatever is included with what we call death. What is death? Death is everything that is against the light of the bliss of the Creator. What is the bliss and the light of the Creator? So we understand by the teachings of Rabbi Ashlag that basically, to make it very simple and reasonable to the modern human ear, we know there is something in the rules of the universe that says similarities attract, which means, let's say somebody is calling you on the cell phone, okay? You cannot use an apple, the fruit that grew on a tree, okay? Or a peach or a watermelon to answer the call. Why? Because these fruits are not designed to connect to the frequency of a phone call, which is a radio wave. In order for to create a device that calls in that frequency, you need a special device that was built specially for that, that is designed specially for that, and it has the SIM card of your phone number in order to pick that special call, which means if it's not your phone, somebody calling you, other phones won't ring. So it needs to be a device that is tuned especially for that. Every mitzvah is a device that is tuned to receive a certain calling, a certain bliss. So the Zohar said if it was Passover and the Israelites needed protection, the device was the blood of the lamb. The Zohar adds there were also the blood of the circumcision of the Israelites on that day, because except from the Levites, the other tribes of Israel did not circumcise under the slavery in Egypt. So before they could get out of Egypt, they had to circumcise. So they took the two bloods, and that's why it says, Bedamayich Chai. You will live with your bloods, in plural, two bloods, the blood of the lamb and the blood of the circumcision. Together, that potion was the secret potion to create protection. Now, the Zohar says, I'll give you another example. Rosh Hashanah, as we said, every human life is right now in danger because all the garbage we generated during the past years, and we did not remove that garbage, anger, upset, passion, physical passion, anything that is on the level of what we call the scope of what we call the desire to receive for the self alone. That frequency of selfishness cannot communicate properly with the bliss of the Creator, because what is the frequency of the network of the Creator? Giving. Life. Life is about giving. Life is about love. True love between two human beings is selfless. The more selfish the person is, the less he can experience, or she can experience, true love. Because when we understand the language of the Tanakh, the Torah, when it speaks about love, it speaks about a frequency in which there is a total unity, oneness, and oneness means having the same frequency. How do you create love between two human beings? You need to give up a lot of your selfishness. Selfish people are not capable of loving. When it says love others as you love yourself, we learn so many times, how do I know I am improving in my spiritual journey to reach to my fruition, as according to the example we gave before about the peaches, about the fruits? If I'm capable to love people unconditionally more than before, I know that I am on the right direction. If I see myself not being able to be in empathy with other people, and I'm judging so much, I know that I am doing something wrong, because I'm getting farther away from my goal. So life, the tree of life, opens up on Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the 7th biblical year, okay? The first day of the new moon of Libra. What do you do, says the Zohar? You need to have prayers. You need to blow the shofar. These are the tools that you can ascend with and receive the cosmic, spiritual, or metaphysical bliss that flows into the universe on that day to feed every human soul for the rest of the next 12 months, usually 12, the next year, the next lunisolar year. Okay? Now, so you need, as I said, צריכים דיבורים, you need talks. What do you create in the physical dimension in order to pull in that spiritual power that we are supposed to pull in? So, speech, which means prayers, and an action. להראות מעשה, כמו שאמרנו, and what? shofar, blowing the horn of a ram, in order to awaken mercy or the life force for the next year, which is in the level of Sfirat Bina. If you're going to blow a horn of a cow, it's not going to work. If you're going to blow a trumpet or saxophone, it's not going to work. Why? Because the Torah gives us exactly the definition of the device. So when you're talking about a biblical mitzvah, is a very, very simple explanation. There is a device, in this case, shofar, which a horn, it is a horn of a ram. On Passover, you need the matzot, okay? The matzos and, the seder plate, 4 cups of wine, and so on and so forth. These are the devices that call the holiness in. So, different frequencies, this is different forms of bliss are being sent to the physical plane on different dates, so you can pull them in when we are talking about holidays, Shabbat, and stuff like this. So the shofar also has the ability to take judgment and mercy and sweeten the judgments and turn everything into mercy. And by this, we can purify our souls and reach what is called teshuvah, returning back to the connection to the tree of life, to God's life force. Okay? So when the mercies, I'm still reading in verse 10 in the Zohar, וכשהרחמים מתעוררים, when the mercies are being awakened, כל נרות עליונים, דהיינו הספירות, מאירים מצד זה ומצד זה. Then all the upper candles, which are the sephirot, the divine illuminations, are shining from this side and from the other side, which means from the right side, mercy, loving kindness, and from the left side, which is judgment. And you need both to live a life, because you need both forces. You cannot live just on chesed, loving kindness. You can't live just on love. You need also the power of judgment, which means you need to put some boundaries to love, to passion. Holiness is the mixture of chesed and gevurah, loving kindness and boundaries, judgment. Judgment alone cannot work. Love, sharing, caring alone doesn't work. You need to have both in order to create that dimension of wholenessness, completion. Then, as be'or pnei melech haim, then you can celebrate in the light of the face of the King of Life, which is what we experience on Rosh Hashanah. So, verse 11, come and see, בואו ראה, בשעה שהכהן התכוון להדליק נרות למטה, והיה מקריב קטורת הסמים, אז באותה שעה מאירים נרות עליונים שהם הספירות. So when the Kohen had the kavanah, the intention, the contemplation, the meditation, the whole state of mind, basically, that I am lighting the physical candles in the physical golden candelabra, the menorah, the famous menorah in the temple. when I do that, or the Zohar says also when he was lighting the incense, both were about the same idea. You're doing a mitzvah, which means you're doing a physical action that even a baby can see with his eyes, lighting candles, burning the incense. However, without the intention, if you just do it as a religious thing, I'm doing it. Why? Because God ordered me to do that. Why do you think God wants you to do that? For what? It's like, oh, he told me to do it, I have to do it. I'm following his. That's idol worshiping. You really think that God has nothing to do just to watch you if you're doing what he said? If you're not, he's going to smite you. That's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is not monotheism. This is idol worshiping, really, like the core of idol worshiping. And I know a lot of people. That's what they learned in Hebrew school. That's what they learned in the yeshiva. That's what they learned in the synagogue. You have to do it because God told you to do it. They make a big mistake because they mix between mitzvah and tzivui. Tzivui means an order, a commandment. Mitzvah means a teaming, from the word tzevet, to team. What's the difference? Mitzvah is not a good deed. Mitzvah is an action that you do in the physical dimension, like a prayer, like lighting the candles of Hanukkah or Shabbat, or mitzvah is a physical, putting on, laying on tefillin. You're doing an action in a physical dimension that other people can see and watch you doing something. However, as the Zohar says, there was a word kavanah. The Kohen had the intention, the will, the desire, the excitement, and the understanding that when I do that physical action, I do it for one purpose and one purpose alone. I'm doing it in order to awaken something in the universe beyond the five senses. By the way, when you study Kabbalah, one of the most shocking part of studying Kabbalah is when you study the tree of life and you understand how the spiritual universe, how complex it is, how structured it is, how huge it is beyond every human being's understanding. It's like a huge computer program. It is a huge matrix of forces, powers, all of them are working with each other in harmony like a computer program, okay? That's the closest you can explain. So what do I do when I turn on the phone when somebody is calling me, when I answer the phone? Basically, what do I mean answer the phone? I have to push the answer button, okay? I have to push the answer window that opens up. Why do I have to do it? Why? The system doesn't know I'm here? Yeah, but it gives me the free will to take the call or not to take the call, okay? So I need to do an action on my side so the call will come in. Is that clear? No coercion in spirituality. Can the endless Almighty, the Creator himself, the endless light, God, can he force me to be happy? No. Why? This is taking away my free will, and he's not going to take anything from me. He's only giving. So in order to get his bliss, I need to make an action. I need to transform who I am. I need to do something in this physical world to create that vehicle, that vessel that can answer his call. So God's calling daily. How do I answer? So all the mitzvot written in the Torah and being more explained in detail in the oral Torah, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Shulchan Aruch, which means all the books of halacha, what they do is basically, they are the manual explaining How do I, a physical human being, answer the call? Which means God is calling every day. How do you answer the call? So there are 3 prayers a day. Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit. Why? There's Tikkun Chatzot. There are calls. The universe is calling, sending me bliss. So there's a certain bliss that is available in the morning. That's why there's a legend that says in the beginning of Masechet Brachot, Tractate Brachot in the Talmud, that says that God lays tefillin every morning. What's the size of his tefillin? You know, how big is the cow you have to kill in order to create that tefillin? Does God lay tefillin, physical tefillin? No. He lays the power of tefillin in the universe so we can call it in when we physically lay tefillin in the physical world. But if I lay tefillin just because God asked me, why? Kill me, I don't know. I don't know what. That's not the intention. That's exactly what the Zohar is saying. When the Kohen had the consciousness, the meditation, the will, the desire, and also the understanding how the universe is wired and what's happening when you light the 7 candles, what's happening when you light, when you burn the incense. When he did it, then the supreme spiritual metaphysical candles, the Sephirot, are being connected above with the below. ונקשר הכל יחד, everything is becoming connected to be one. Then you have, you know, how do you say in modern Hebrew, communication, like media, תקשורת. What's the source? קשר, connection. You have a connection. When you go online, okay, or when you listen to the radio or you go online, whatever, you are creating תקשורת, קשר, connection. So now that our brains can start to understand, like, is that a mitzvah to have a phone? In a way, yes. You take a physical device that you can take in your hand, you can feel the device, you can weigh it, you can touch it all over and sense how smooth it is, or what's the material it's made of. Is it plastic or aluminum or stuff like this, or titanium? Doesn't matter. Still, the purpose of this device is not to feel like this when you're holding it. The purpose of this device is to connect to something that none of your senses can understand or feel. Radio waves. Those radio waves, or that electromagnetic frequency that is available in the air. However, our physical senses cannot see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, or even understand how the waves move through the walls, through our body. We have no idea whatsoever. It's almost impossible. How many people do really know, which means because our brain is so physical, we cannot really understand. We can write all kinds of formulas and try to understand the formulas. But we have no perception how those waves move through space. We don't. Can we really understand how the waves go through the walls? Through anything solid, like through wood or through our own body? No, we can't. We still know that I'm operating a physical device I can feel, touch, and so on, and that connects to something I don't understand. Okay? Let's say somebody comes in a time tunnel from a few centuries ago to today and see people talking to little pieces of plastic or metal. Phones, okay? That looks like craziness, okay? Now our brains are starting to understand each mitzvah is made of 2 parts. One is the physical action, creating a device, that can bring in down to the physical reality a spiritual force, the illumination of the upper candles, the upper lights. And then when everything is connected, what's the result? Says the Zohar. Now that everything is connected, simcha, chedva, happiness, joy, נמצאים בכל העולמות, are there available in all the different olamot, concealments. Olamot in Hebrew mean olam, a world. But in Hebrew, it means concealment. We see, this is our world. What do we see? Concealment. We see a fraction of what is really there. We don't see radio waves, X-rays, so many frequencies known to science till today, we cannot even understand how they operate. Why? Because our senses cannot perceive them, and therefore our brain and our imagination cannot really perceive them. Okay, so how old is science? Very young, relatively to thousands of years of human history. The science of electromagnetic waves, just go in that, or other kinds of radiations like radioactive waves, and all of that, it's so young. Maybe a century, two, no more than that, even not even 2 centuries. And how much do we know? We know a lot, and we will know much more. So talking about other hidden worlds, olamot, that our senses cannot see, I don't see the problem with that. So when we want to draw happiness, joy, and what is happiness and joy? This is the effect of spiritual light flowing towards our dimension and filling us up. This spiritual light is not physical. You cannot weigh it. You cannot touch it. You cannot measure it with any of the scientific devices we have. However, you can measure the consequences. You can measure the result of the presence of that light. It's called happiness. It's called joy. It's called love. How do we know? When we are full with that magical, spiritual, godly light, as it says, and God said, let there be light. When we are fulfilled with that light, it is already known scientifically. When a person is full of joy and happiness, and not the temporary one of high and by, it's like the real joy and happiness of connecting to some higher dimension. We are healthier, our immune system is functional, our brain is more functional, our brain waves are different. And that affects everything in our physical body. It affects the blood flow, it affects so many things. The last 20-something years are so full of so many findings, scientific findings that explain when a person is somehow connected to that, what we call happiness, joy, spiritual fulfillment, it has a direct effect on our physiology. And that's why, as it says, shemen uktoret yisamach lev, oil, lighting candles, and incense, ktoret, will make the heart happy. And that's why when it says BeHa'alotekha, on one hand, you raise your consciousness when you light the physical lights in the candelabra, in the menorah, you have to meditate, contemplate, concentrate to light the upper candles. When you do that, you create a connection. When you make the connection, you experience that flow in the mundane level. How do you experience the results? Happiness, love, harmony. This is basically the whole understanding of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's wisdom. That's the whole point of Mount Sinai revelation. We are magical creatures, and we need to perform magic on a daily basis in order to draw the magic into our own everyday life. Why do we need to do that? So the Zohar continues with one of the most famous articles in the Zohar, and the Zohar is talking, just going right now to Parashat Noach, the story of the flood. I'll just skip because we don't have so much time. On verse 14, it says, verse 13, it says, the Torah has many, many stories. Do you think that the stories of the Torah are basically about the stories? And the Zohar is asking, uh, whatever stories we have in the Torah, that's in verse 15, the Zohar is asking, a flesh and blood king, is it proper for him to tell simple, foolish stories? Of course not. So the king of all kings, the creator of the universe, is it proper for him to tell us stories about what did Balaam say and Balak, what did they say? Who cares about them? They were not even, or Lavan, all kinds of people were not even holy people. Why do we need to hear these stories? And the answer of the Zohar, every story in the Torah is a code for what's happening in the upper worlds. Why is it coded? Because you don't want the wrong people to connect to that, because you don't want the wrong people to know the structure of the universe, especially when in the ancient times, till maybe, and even today, there were so many people that were so much involved with witchcraft. They knew there is some forces in the unseen dimension, and they wanted to connect to these forces in order to fulfill greed, lust, and all kinds of other selfish needs. The Torah could not afford disclosing all those secrets to these kind of people. So that's why the Torah had to hide all of these secrets. That's why even the Mishnah or the Talmud, they're hiding these secrets. Today, says Rabbi Ashlag, because people are so materialistic and so selfish, they can't even believe you when you talk about it. So you can talk about it, because the people who will understand that, these are also the people that their hearts is ready towards understanding the meaning. What is the meaning? As we said before, why did the Creator give us the Torah? Why did he give us all the mitzvot? And let us understand. So if we go to the story of Parashat BeHa'alotekha, it starts with a magical candelabra, the menorah, okay, which is the main symbol of the temple work as a visual symbol. Why? The connection between the seven sephirot of the tree of life above and the seven candles in the menorah in the world below. Okay? Then there's a story about the Levites being consecrated to become those people serving the holiness, and how the whole nation, especially the Kohen, had to raise them. It's again, there's this action of raising. What does it mean? That Aaron, the high priest, had to raise every Levite physically. What did he raise really? Again, consciousness, awareness. So a simple person became basically anointed. And that's what anointment with. There was an anointment they were using to make those people specially ready to serve in the temple. So I won't go into it too much because it's the same thing. And then we have chapter 9, verse 1 about the celebration of Passover, exactly a year after the Exodus. Now they can get it. Now they're ready. They're not slaves in a shock and post-traumatic event of the plague, the 10th plague. Now it's a year later. They went through so much purification, studying, learning, Mount Sinai revelation. Now they're celebrating Pesach from a totally different place. Now they are free human beings. However, verse 6, and it says, and there were people who were impure during that celebration, which means when the temple work is, and the temple was already dedicated 2 weeks earlier on the new moon of Nisan. So that was the first holiday celebrated with the temple work. And there were people who were impure, which means they were not capable of celebrating with everybody else. What is their reaction of those people? So those people, they say, verse 7, they come to Moses and they say, we are impure. Why should we be disconnected from the work of the temple for Passover? We know, this is an amazing event in history. Why? If you are in the worship of idols and then you can't come on time because something happened, you missed the worship ceremony, okay? You were impure. So usually the priest of any kind of idol worshiping system, which is basically deeply rooted in abuse. That's how you can say, you can realize what's a false religion. Abuse. When you feel abused, when you feel abusive, when you feel that it leads you to too much of abuse. And what does it mean? If it's a priest of abuse, doesn't matter what religion, people come, what can we do? We could not celebrate. So from my experience, you have to think, what did you do wrong so you don't deserve to receive God's light? Is that what Moses answers them? No. More than that, a priest will say, how dare you, you filthy whatever, mortals, to even come and complain about it. You should sit in the corner and be ashamed of yourself. He should give immediately a lot of money and a donation and so on and so forth. He should do what I say just to cleanse and repent and so on. This is abusive. This is abuse you can find in all religions. I'm not saying it's the religion, it's the way people interpret religion. Abuse is part of human nature, unfortunately. So, what's Moses' answer? Verse 8, Vayomer alehem Moshe, and Moses tells them, Imdu ve'eshma ma'itzaveh Adonai lachem. Stand over here, and I will hear what God orders to do. So, verse 9, and God speaks to Moses. He's asking God. And then what's God's answer? And God says to Moses, speak to the children of Israel, daber bnei Israel lemor, saying so, ish ki yetameh lanefesh ubederech rechoka. In a case somebody cannot reach the temple in a pure way, which means either on the pilgrimage, which means when you do aliyah l'regel, when you go on your way to Jerusalem, and there were storms or whatever, something happened, and you cannot get in time for Passover, or you were impure, you could not purify yourself on time before the holiday. In case like this, on the second month, Passover is celebrated on the first month in the astrological biblical calendar. Verse 11, B'chodesh hashani ב-14 yom ben ha'arbaim, on the second month, Exactly a month later, just the eve of the new moon of Taurus, because Passover is always in the full moon of Aries, you can do it again. Matzot, bitter herbs, doing the offering of the lamb, almost in the same exactly, which means you have a second chance. What an amazing concept. The concept is we humans are not perfect. We miss opportunities right and left. There's always another chance. Why? Remember, we are God's fruits, and we are going through a process of ripening that this process can take millennia, reincarnation after reincarnation. God as the farmer, he doesn't give us any choice not to get ripe. He's giving us all the options to reach that place of being ripe. How can we get ripe? Okay, we need the mitzvot. We need those actions. Charity is an action. Do not steal is an action. All of those do's and do not do in the Tanakh, in the Torah, all of these are tools for one purpose only: how to enhance the process that we, as God's fruits, we will ripe and finally reach that place that each one of us will be ripe, and that will mean sweetness, aroma, all of those great forces that are hidden inside each one of us will finally bloom and be so delicious to everybody around us. This is the purpose. Even if we miss an opportunity, there's another one and another one. And how do we know? So we see another example to it. Here another time we have the verb to rise, the cloud. There was a cloud with the camp of the Israelites. And that cloud was a cloud of spiritual forces. Not everybody could see the cloud, but people could see the result of the cloud: wisdom, spiritual fulfillment, protection. When we are connected to the cloud, how do we get connected to the cloud? This is exactly what the Zohar is explaining. The cloud is available always, daily. Our job of taking the commitment of working on becoming more spiritual people, B, using the mitzvot as tools to bring that spiritual light to purify our physical bodies so we can get ripe, and then we can reach those frequencies of hitting, connecting, reconnecting to the tree of life. Then that will enhance the process of ripening. Why? Because the light of the mitzvot slowly purifies our body. And how do we see that? The cloud in the desert was part of this protection shield, but do we have the cloud nowadays? Of course we do. We can build up the cloud every year during the 7 days of Sukkot. We are building the cloud daily by actions of chesed, because what is a cloud? A cloud in the physical dimension is a collection of endless amount of droplets of water. What is water? Chesed. When a person is commitment for as many actions of chesed possible, he's building his own cloud of protection. Chesed protects. Chesed is the cloud today. Doing chesed, doing kindness, actions of kindness to others. The cloud will also lead you to where you need. The same way, when they saw the cloud moving, they follow the cloud to the next camp. Okay? When a person is connected to the cloud, that person will know when it's the time to get out of a job and to find another job, and where to find a job. moving from one dwelling to another. All of that stuff is the cloud. And then we have that amazing story about the movement of the cloud. And we use those verses every time we open the ark in the synagogue. Vayhi bin Soharon vayomer Moshe, kum Hashem v'yafutz oivecha. And that means that every time we open the ark in the synagogue, we're not opening a closet, a physical, man-made closet that we put the Torahs in. No, as the Zohar says in Parashah Vayikra, you open the doors of the ark in a physical domain, you should have kavanah, knowledge, intention, concentration, understanding that you're moving and opening the gates of mercy in heaven. And that is the time to pray and ask for our needs, healing and all of that stuff. And then after this amazing verse, you can find it in Book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 35 and 36. Okay? And there's an amazing thing over there. The two nuns, the Hebrew letter nun appears before this verse 38, 35, and after verse 36, and you do not pronounce it. It's the only time I think there's a letter in the Torah you cannot read. It's there backwards, like parentheses, but backwards. What is this backwards nun? And the answer is nun is a symbol, as Zohar is teaching. The nun is a symbol of falling. When you turn it backwards, it's the antidote for falling. Why? Because on chapter 11, verse 1, and the people are complaining in the ears of God. And God heard, and then this expression, his nostrils, his nose got really burning. And the fire of God started to burn in them, in the edge of the camp. Is God angry? No, it says that his nose, and if you understand Kabbalistic term, the nose is a symbol for the, what's the nose of a human being? This is the filter for the air, okay, for balancing the air. If it's too cold, too hot, it's too dirty because there's dust and stuff like this, your nose is protecting your breathing system from the whatever can contaminate the air that you're breathing. So when that and the nose is also a symbol of the filter of Sfirat Zeranpin, the upper world, that intermediate level between the real higher levels of spirituality and the physical layers of physicality. So when the nose is hot, dry, and blocked, we experience judgment. Who creates that? It's our actions. So is God angry? What did we say before? Is God Almighty is endless, infinite. You cannot change him. You cannot make him change his mind about you. You can change the way you feel his power by, according to, if you create anger, complain, you can see it. Complainers are never winners. Why? They just complainers that just create the energy around them, the cloud of hurt, misfortune. This is scientific already. People who really connect to a spiritual cloud of honor, of chesed, of giving, and so on, positive, optimistic, graceful people, they create around them good fortune. This is already scientific results. Just go and you search about positive psychological capital. This is the research, modern research. Positive people really trust the good, and they really do the good because they trust an endless good around them. Maybe they don't even know how to call it, but they feel that because they're more advanced in the process of ripening. They make more money, 4 to 5 times more than those complainers. And they complain about no meat, they complain there's no fish, there's no cucumbers. It looks so silly. But why the Torah has to talk about it? Because the Torah has to teach us that to understand, do not fake it that you're righteous. You're a human being, and human beings are weak. We fall daily into the traps of the physical body. Desire to receive for the self alone, which means egotism, selfishness, all kinds of whims. And so we have a whole host, a whole army of terrible feelings and emotions that are there with us. We were created with them. Why? Because we need to earn the elevation, the epiphany, the real happiness. So we need to draw the connection to the upper world in order to purify the host of negativity that we all carry with us. This is the process of ripening. That's how slowly, slowly, God has all the patience in the world. Don't even think he lost his patience with you. The problem is that you don't lose the patience, that you stop understanding what's the concept of mitzvah is about. It's not a good deed. It's doing a good deed or anything that connects the upper world, Olam Haba, with the physical world, Olam Hazeh. When you connect them by this consciousness and also actions, physical charity, physical chesed of doing something for something, physically realizing when it says do not steal, you do not steal, you do not cheat, okay? There is a connection. You cannot be spiritual, says the Zohar, and not being honest in your business relationship with others. You have to understand that two universes must unite. Who is the high priest that will unite the two universes? It's you and me, all of us. That's our calling. So when it says BeHa'alotekha, as you ascend and rise, this is the consciousness of rising daily, raising this universe daily, achieving that godly state of mind. If you ask yourself again and again and again, why is it that on one hand, we are in such a materialistic era, culture, that there's no place for God and godliness in the public domain? That whoever is talking about spiritual awareness, godly love, is being ridiculed. It's like, oh, there's no God. Science didn't prove there's a God. Science didn't prove a lot of things, and a lot of stuff that science discovered, they have a half-time life like everything else. So now we understand that I said many times. Why, when books like Harry Potter, all kinds of movies about the supernatural, when these books and movies are coming out, they become best-selling. Why? Like Tolkien, Lord of the Ring is so, and The Hobbit is so still popular because our society is so hungry for that feeling of the divine, of the supernatural world. So just watching movies is not going to satiate your hunger. You have to study the Torah. You have to study the Zohar. Still, your brain will be, through meditation and study, your brain will become what it's supposed to be. The main vehicle to unite these two universes. And when the two universes unite together, only then you reach the secret of true, authentic, lasting fulfillment. And that's what all of us need, especially in this world. And that's a fight. Right now, the whole world is already within deep into World War III. It's getting upscaled daily. More violence, more negativity, but the lines are being drawn between people who really feel there is a God of love, and he reveals himself through every action of our life. That's BeHa'alotekha, raising everything we can raise. And those people say there's no God. He's not present in our life. And if there's a God, it's the idols of the Dark Ages and even before, of ancient times, of hatred and division and competition and killing and murdering and stealing, of dishonesty. If you look at all the gods of the ancients, they were not honest. They didn't represent real, true love. They represented physical passion and greed. And humanity is right now in one of its most important processes of being mature and ripe towards a messianic age in which we understand that idea as a whole, as a collective, and we can see it happening in our lives. Thank you and good luck in this journey. Very important journey. Very important to understand this in order to stay sane in this weird times we're going through. It's not weird. It's part of the process of reaching that place of what is really connected to divine. Thank you.